All right, so for this next video, I usually teach sections 2 and 3 together because they are just adding and subtracting integers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give us the rules that we need ahead of time, and then we're going to go ahead and apply each rule accordingly depending upon what question we're given. So if you give me a second, I'm going to write out both rules, and then you can write them down. Remember, you could just pause the video, write them down, then unpause it for the examples. All right, I am back. So on your screen, you should see two rules, and there's a space in between them. So make sure when you're writing these down, you put that space in there. But go ahead and pause the video if you want. Write them. You can write down rule number 1. All right. But here's what we got. Rule 1: when the signs of the numbers are the same, you're going to want to combine the numbers and keep the sign. Now, the reason why I wanted you to put a little space there, all right, is because I'm going to go ahead and do like a small little example here. So here's a little example. 1 plus 2, well, the signs are both positive, so you're going to combine the numbers and keep the sign. So 1 plus 2 is 3. Simple. However, here's another example. -10 minus 5. Well, if you look at the signs in front of the numbers, in front of the 10 is a negative, in front of the 5 is a negative. So the signs of both numbers are the same. Therefore, we're going to combine the numbers. So combine them. 10 and 5 is 15, but you keep the sign. So -10 minus 5 is -15. And that's honestly as hard as rule number 1 gets, okay? Now, rule number 2, as you can see, is a little bit more tedious. However, the only reason why it looks like this is because I want to make sure that I'm very thorough and exact with what I want you to do. So your book has a very short rule, but they really don't go too far into like where they're getting all this information from, okay? So let's go ahead and let's look at this rule. Now, this rule says, when the signs of the numbers are different, follow these steps below. Okay, so, let me scroll down. Follow these steps below. So step 1, you're going to want to find the absolute value of each number and label which absolute value is larger. Then, depending upon what number 1 says, number 2, you are just going to subtract those two numbers, put the larger number on top, smaller number on the bottom, and just subtract to get an answer. And then step 3, your answer is going to have the same sign as the original larger number. So let me show you what I mean by this, okay? So here's our example here. And we'll do, like I said, a relatively easy one. So -7 or -19 plus 7. Now, you might be able to do this one in your head, but I want to show you how this works. All right? So off to the right here, I'm just going to write step 1. And I'm going to find the absolute value of each of these numbers. So the absolute value of -19 is +19. Absolute value of 7 is +7. So 19 is definitely larger. Okay? Now remember, that was originally a negative. That's going to be our step 3. Step 2, we write the large number on top, and we subtract the smaller number, so 19 minus 7. Well, 9 minus 7 is 2, 1 minus 0 is 1. So from step 2, we get a result of 12. And then step 3, your answer will share the same sign as the larger number. So remember, this larger number was negative, which means your answer is going to be negative as well. So -19 plus 7 is -12. And that's how these steps work. Once you get really, really good at this, your steps are going to go much quicker. In fact, you might not even write them that much. But the idea behind this is you want to go ahead and just apply the rule accordingly. And we're always looking at the sign in front of the number. So let's just do a bunch of examples. So here's our first example here. -7 minus 5. Okay, well, step 1, let's find the absolute value of each. Step 2, oh, sorry, I'm not even done with step 1 yet. I have to label larger. My bad. So now step 2, we're going to take 7 minus 5. That gives me a 2. And then step 3, uh-oh, I did this problem completely wrong. Well, that's not good. So hopefully what I can do here is just edit it in YouTube later. All right. So we're about the 5-minute mark. So here's our new example. So right here, you can see the signs are the same. So what we're going to do is just add the numbers and keep the sign. So 7 and 5 is 12, and keep the sign, which is going to be a negative. Let's try another example here using that first rule. 8 plus 20. Notice that the 8 is positive, even though we didn't write a plus in front. It's positive. The 20 is positive. So we combine the numbers, keep the sign. All right. Now, sometimes you may see a problem that looks like this. Okay? Now, there are many ways to approach this. The key here is just to look at the sign directly in front of the number. In this case, they are both negative. So, -6 plus -3. Add the numbers, keep the sign, so that's going to be -9. Now, another way to look at this problem, okay, is to be able to recognize, and I'm just going to rewrite the problem right here. Another way to do this problem is to be able to recognize that you have two signs back to back, and normally we don't really like that. Okay? So if, and I'm going to write this in red, if the two signs back to back are plus and then minus, or a minus then a plus, just rewrite your problem with a minus sign in between. So for us, this is going to be -6 minus 3. And once again, if you look at the signs directly in front of the numbers, nothing changes. They're both negative. So we're going to combine the numbers and keep the sign. So you still get the same exact result. Okay? So now what I'd like us to do is a couple more problems. We're using rule number 2. So here's some problems here with rule number 2. So let's see here. What do we got? 65 minus 200. Okay? Well, in this example, these signs are opposite. So there's a plus sign for the 65 and a minus sign for the 200. So the signs are opposite. So we're going to have to go ahead and do our thing here. So step 1. Let's find the absolute value of each. So the absolute value of 65 is 65. And the absolute value of -200 is positive 200. And clearly, 200 is larger. So if you want to, you could just draw this little arrow back to the negative sign as a reminder for step 3. Step 2, we're going to take 200 and subtract 65 from it. So if you went ahead and did that, 200 minus 65 is going to be 135. And then step 3 is just going to be your sign. Well, remember, the 200 was the larger absolute value, and you drew an arrow back to the negative symbol. So this is negative 135. Okay? So let's try another one here. How about 4 plus -9 minus 7? Okay? So we're just going to go left to right. So if you notice, we have that situation where we have two signs back to back, and they're both opposites, plus and a minus. So we're going to rewrite the problem as 4 minus 9 minus 7. Now, the 4 is positive, the 9 is negative. We're not going to worry about that minus 7. We'll worry about that at the very end. So, step 1, absolute value of 4 is 4. Absolute value of -9 is positive 9. This one's definitely larger. I draw my little arrow. Step 2. Oh, sorry, I'm already thinking of the answer. 9 minus 4 is 5. And then step 3, the result, well, this is going to be -5 because that 9 was negative. So for this very first part, 4 minus 9, you get -5 minus 7. And then here, we switch it up a little bit because both signs in front of each number are negative. So we combine the numbers, keep the sign. So this answer will be -12. Okay? So I hope this is making sense. We're not done yet. We got a couple more to do. But I want to go ahead because we may run into this situation right here. So if you notice in this answer, or in this problem right here, you have the two signs back to back again. Okay, you get the two signs back to back, but notice they're both the same. So if you have a negative and a negative back to back, just rewrite your problem with a plus sign. Okay? So 9 minus a negative 15 actually turns out to be 9 plus 15. And 9 plus 15 is going to be 24. Okay? So that's the only thing you really got to be concerned with there, is when you have that double negative back to back. And if that's the case, you just got to deal with it. Let's try this one. Let's evaluate 17 minus x when x equals, let's say, 5 and x equals negative 15. Okay, so remember, I like to write the problem and then directly underneath, I rewrite it, and then wherever I see the variable, I put the parentheses. And now you're going to see why. This is where, remember back in chapter 1 and chapter 2, this is now where it pays off. So for the first, we're going to let x equal 5. So I'm just going to substitute in a 5 here. And this is just simple. This is just going to be 17 minus 5. And 17 minus 5 is 12. Now, for the second example, I just set everything up the same exact way. Notice I'm going to substitute in a negative 15. And as you can see, I have that double negative back to back. That's why it's so important you put parentheses first, then you make your substitution, because this turns out to be 17 plus 15. And 17 plus 15 is 32. Okay? So once again, you got to be careful when you're doing these. And the most careful thing that you can do is just take your time, slow down, put the parentheses when you're making substitutions, and just watch out for those double signs if they're back to back. That's going to be it for this video. I'll see you in the next one where we talk about multiplying and dividing integers.